Hey everyone, it's Newt Westen here on the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm going to be popping in a handful of times this summer talking about all the position groups and doing some summer scouting rankings. For whatever reason, Owen thought it was a wonderful idea to give me a platform to let my unhinged thoughts, unleashed. So, here we are. Excited to get into it, excited to talk about these position groups. We're starting off with the group that everyone loves. It's going to be the quarterbacks. So I've looked at 10 quarterbacks so far. Plan on looking at more, a couple notable names that I haven't looked at. Connor Wegman, Jalen Daniels, Fernando Mendoza, Kevin Jennings. I know that there are going to be some people that have some pretty strong opinions on those guys, and I just want to let you know I'm going to get to them. But for the purposes of what I'm doing today, I haven't gotten a chance to. So for my 6 to 10 group, I am ranking them kind of where I see them, but I'm by no means saying like these are my, 6 to 10. It's just the guys that I happen to have watched and where I see them. So to get into it, Miller Moss comes in at number 10. I watched Miller Moss just kind of from the fact that he had that electric start last year, splashed on the scene against LSU, but obviously faded a little bit. I think him going to Louisville, I believe, will be a really good opportunity for him to get a fresh start. With Miller Moss, I really like his poise. I think he plays very good in a well structured system. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way, but with that, he also doesn't push the ball downfield as much as I'd like to say. He had a 3.1 turnover worthy play percentage, which is excellent, but he only had a 3.4 big time throw percentage. And because of that, you're not really kind of getting that excitement. He's a very safe brand of player. I think another element that comes from that is just going to be his arm strength. He really doesn't have a good deep ball, in my opinion. If you're asking this guy to come in and really stretch the field, I have concerns over that. Maybe that's something that he was a little bit hampered by in the USC system and coming in trying to fill the shoes of Caleb Williams. He felt like he didn't want to make a mistake, but I didn't really love what I saw for him, especially in terms of his opportunity to be a big-time star and a big-time thrower. So he comes in at number 10. Carson Beck, kind of the opposite of that. Carson Beck has a stellar arm. No questions about his arm talent. He's able to push the ball downfield. He is definitely not afraid to put the ball in harm's way, and there's kind of the flip side of that where, in big moments in big games, he tried to be the hero too much. I think of the Alabama game where he threw the ball into double coverage and it got picked off to end the game. And it was really kind of an unfortunate ending for what had been an amazing second half for him. So with him, I like a lot of the elements that he brings with his arm talent. I don't think he really poses anything in terms of like a scrambling quarterback. I don't think he's immobile, but I don't think he's going to wow you or scare you with his legs. It just comes down to some of the things of fundamentals and decision making. A lot of the picks that he threw last year were odd picks where I don't know if he didn't read the coverage or he just didn't see a guy, but they were not challenging interceptions at all. And so it's something that I'd like to see him clean up. I think he's got the arm talent to be an NFL quarterback, but the decision making is going to be something that really scares me. And I don't know how much of that's going to change when he goes from a premier system at Georgia to Miami, which obviously had a great opportunity this year with Cam Ward to kind of showcase their ability to develop and get quarterbacks into a position where that they make that step forward. So Carson Beck for me comes in at number 9. Nico Amalieva is in at number 8. And with Nico, he's another player that has good arm strength. He's the flip side of Beck in terms of his scrambling ability and athleticism. He's probably the most mobile quarterback here. I'm not calling him a dual threat quarterback per se. He had one game in his collegiate career where he had multiple rushing touchdowns, and that was the first game he started, the bowl game, I want to say, against Iowa. So that was something where he really displayed it there. And then last year, he didn't put the ball on the ground a ton in a way that was kind of what you think of as especially a collegiate traditional dual threat quarterback. So with that, he brings the arm talent, he brings the athleticism. He obviously played in the Tennessee system that has some oddities to it, and I know that he claimed that for his reason leaving Tennessee and wanting to go to UCLA. See kind of how that plays out for him. I think ultimately, in that light, it's a very good decision for him to go to UCLA. But there's some questions obviously around what was the actual motive. Why did you do it in the spring transfer portal? Just some things that people probably are going to keep their ear open a little bit more and put him under a little bit of a microscope. Now, there's a good chance he doesn't come out this year and he spends another year in college, but with him being draft eligible, I wanted to include him on here. Some of the weaknesses I saw from him is the fact that he lacks some discipline in the pocket. I think he moved too early or almost moved into pressure. It felt like to me he struggled to adequately feel that pressure. He also had 10 fumbles in 2024. So with that, it's just keeping a really good track of the football and protecting it. We talk about interceptions a ton for quarterbacks, but fumbles are a turnover nonetheless. And so with that, it's something I'd like to see him clean up. He did have a better turnover-worthy play to big-time throw percentage ratio, 2.5 turnover-worthy play percentage to 4.8 big-time throw percentage. So that's kind of nice to see. But ultimately, I'd like to see him protect the ball a little bit more. And then I already mentioned this, but like the athleticism that he brings, it doesn't translate necessarily to his ability to actually be an effective runner. So someone for me that I think has athletically a high floor. I like his arm, but I don't know if it stands out in terms of like it goes above and beyond some of these guys, like Carson Beck and some of the guys we'll talk about in the top 5 have a really good arm. And then I don't know if Nico really elevates himself above that per se. Sam Leavitt's a fun player. I think he's one that kind of burst onto the scene last year with his first year starting for Arizona State University. He's another really gifted athlete, and I actually like him probably the best as a scrambling quarterback, or one of the best, definitely better than Nico. I think he knows how to be effective as a quarterback that's running in space, both on designed runs and when the play breaks down. He is, for being only a sophomore, he's going into his redshirt sophomore season. So third year, he is very mature. He knows when to throw the ball away, knows when to live to face another down. And I think that it's something that shows a sense of understanding for a quarterback. His arm talent is okay. It's not anything that's going to wow. But all in all, I like his ability to move the ball adequately. For him, there's a lot of scheming in that Arizona State offense, not to an Ole Miss or a Tennessee level, but he had a lot of throws that were schemed him. Quick bubble screens, triple options, those sorts of things. He's, like I said, he's not going to stand out as a thrower. He is probably kind of in that Nico conversation where he can move the ball around, he can throw it. His arm's probably not quite as good as Nico's. And so, some of those things can maybe be a little bit of a detriment, especially in a class that has some really strong arms in it. And because of that, he does struggle at times with the accuracy downfield. I think he's another character that has the opportunity to, he's draft eligible this year, but if he actually came out, it would probably take a pretty stellar year from him. I could definitely see him coming back. And then Aiden Childs was one. I think Aiden Childs, for me, I would actually feel fairly comfortable calling him number 6. I really, really liked Aiden Childs, and the fact that I got 5 guys above him says a lot. I think this is a pretty dang good quarterback class, actually. Obviously, there's going to be a handful of guys that probably will come back, but Childs is a solid athlete. He's another one that understands what to do to be an effective scrambler, to be an effective runner out in space. With him, he had the opportunity to actually play in a pro-style offense. Michigan State's offense asked him to take snaps under center. They asked him to, throw in a non-play action type setting where he had to make his reads and move through progressions. And it's something that is, in the excitement of certain college ball programs lost, because it can be at times a little bit more of a boring brand of football, but it's something that I think can help prepare him to be successful in the NFL. He has the ability to throw the ball both with nice touch, and he can drive the ball when needed. I have no questions about his arm strength. Once again, I'm not saying he's going to push the ball way downfield perfectly every time, but he's a guy that can make the necessary throws. He's another player that's very young. He's coming into his true junior year, so a lot of third year guys on this list. So he might be another candidate to come back. With that, he does need to continue to work to protect the football, especially when you look at some of his late game situations and things that he does maybe when state was down. Wasn't always the greatest. He had a 5.1 turnover worthy play percentage. Compare that to like Sam Levitt's 1.1. That really stands out then. And his big time throw percentage was 3.5. So one of those things where he's, I think, maturing as a thrower and kind of developing those things, but he ultimately just needs to continue to get better at that. I did know that he struggles to put the ball to a running back or a check down receiver behind the line of scrimmage. It kind of seems like an awkward throw to him. So something that I'd like to see, and some of those elements kind of can extend beyond the line of scrimmage. It just seems like he's inconsistent at times with that. So 6 through 10 for me. Like I said, I'm not claiming like this is my top 10. Just the guys that I've watched, this is where I have them ranked. But this is where I'll kind of go into now. Hey, I'm calling these kind of my top 5 guys for the summer. These are the 5 that, if you were to ask me, where am I ranking them? Who would I feel pretty good about? This is the group that I'm going to point to. I think for me, 3 through 5 in this group all feel kind of close together. I like all of them for kind of the different things they bring. 2 is a bit of a tier above, and then 1 is going to be, again, a tier above that. So Drew Aller is going to be number 5. I think that Drew Aller and Aiden Childs for me are extremely close in terms of the grading for this. But Drew Aller was kind of like still firmly above him. I like what I saw from Drew Aller last year, and I just hope that he can continue to build on that. He showed excellent pocket presence. He's got very, very sound mechanics, things that he was hailed for coming into his collegiate career. Really started to show through, in my opinion. His arm talent is now kind of getting into that next tier where I say that pretty much all of these guys in the top 5 have very, very good arm talent, or something that is going to stand out and be like, all right, that is definitely an NFL arm. It's not just passable. It's something that scouts are probably looking for a little bit. With this, he's also able to stretch the field, and he's willing to stretch the field. And I've always, appreciated a quarterback that is not just going to be a check down Charlie. You have to have that duality to your game. I want a quarterback that's smart, but you have to be able to stretch the field. At some point, you need the arm and the mentality to do that. And I think that Drew Aller does that. And I think that some of the other things that kind of come his way in terms of that is he faced a lot of adversity throughout the year, and he really found a way to shine in big time moments. He might be remembered for the really poor decision that he made at the end of that Notre Dame game for the pick that was thrown. That was a kind of season defining moment, unfortunately for him, but he made so many clutch and really amazing throws before that. You pop the USC tape on and watch him play there. He did a lot of things where he was able to show poise and a lot of grit in those big moments. So I really love seeing that from him. A couple things against him. He was just so reliant on Tyler Warren in 2024. And I'm curious and kind of excited for 2025 because I want to see what he can do without Tyler Warren. It just seemed like so much of that offense was funneled through either Warren or the running backs that it became gimmicky at times. And I think if you can get Drew Aller to prove himself in a situation that he doesn't have a top 15 talent draft talent on his team, I think that's going to be something that helps his draft stock ultimately. He is still kind of finding his accuracy a little bit with certain throws. I've seen him sail the ball kind of on a number of occasions that have stuck out to me where I wrote that down. He's either made it impossible for the player to make the catch or made it challenging for the receiver to catch the ball in stride. So something I'd like to see him clean up. He's okay with the ball in his hands. I mentioned that Penn State ran some gimmicky type things. A lot of that was, like I said, funneled to Warner, the running backs. He can run with the ball in his hands. He can scramble. He's not going to really strike fear into anyone, though. So with him, he is, once again, he's not locked into the pocket and unable to move from there, but you're not going to probably have a guy spying him the entire game and causing a defense to really scheme around that. So Cade Klubnik comes in next, and this is actually one for me. Cade was probably a little bit more of a late watch for me last year. I didn't pay attention to Clemson a ton, admittedly. And then seeing the ACC title game and college football playoffs roll around, it was a lot of fun seeing Cade Klubnik and the things that he's able to do. Once again, just really, really good arm talent. He has a really tight, quick throwing motion. Everything's very, very efficient. He doesn't have a big looping throw. It's, in, out, and it moves on. He's obviously got a really good receiving core that they have there with Antonio Williams and then the two freshmen. I can't quite remember their names right now, but he's got players that he was able to spread the ball around to very well last year, and with the addition of Brenning Stool and Maffa. But with him, he's doing it. He's not, a hindrance to them. They're complementary to one another. So all of that worked really, really well. He was able to spread the ball around the field, outside, inside, short, deep. His pocket presence was really good. He can get out of the pocket when necessary. He understands when to roll, step out, step in. Those sorts of things I think show a really comfortable and a good understanding of the pocket for him. And then he's got great touch on that deep ball. This is, like I said, where the class starts to really shine in terms of their arm talent. So his deep ball was stellar, and I really, really liked his ability to push the ball down the field and also put it in a spot where he gives his receivers a chance to catch it, but kind of protects himself against the defenders. He, once again, is another one that he doesn't offer a ton as a mobile quarterback. He can get out into space, but he's not going to, in my opinion, wow you in terms of gathering chunks of yard on the ground. He's not a bad athlete. He's actually a pretty good athlete, but he's kind of like a Nico, where I'd say he's not nearly as athletic as Nico, but the athleticism that he brings just doesn't match, in my opinion, what he's able to do as a runner. So something that, especially in certain situations, I'd probably like to see him take advantage of a little bit more. His touch on shorter throws, I'd like to see an improvement of, especially when he's looking to just dump the ball off. Some of those can be almost uncatchable or are uncatchable, and just continue to improve that short throw. And then, once again, just something that's kind of been a little bit of a theme for some of these quarterbacks, fumbles. He had 9 fumbles in 2024, something where he's got to really clean that up and protect the ball a little bit more. He had no problem pushing the ball downfield, like I said. He had a 5.4 big time throw percentage to a 2.3 turnover worthy play percentage, which you love to see that, and he has kind of an understanding of how to affect the game. But cleaning up those fumbles is going to be, I think, a big thing to help him. Lenora Sellers comes in at number 3. Lenora Sellers for me is number 1, he's a redshirt sophomore, so once again a young player, third-year player. I don't know if he'll come out. I think it would probably take a pretty good year where he's almost guaranteed a top 5 selection, but maybe not. Regardless of where that is, the things that I saw from him, he's another player that has a very efficient, quick release, solid arm talent around. I would say that this is kind of where we're starting to get into like the really, really good range of arm talent. Lenora Sellers, of all the guys that I've listed so far, probably has the best arm talent in my opinion. He works through his progressions well. He's shown that ability to kind of work outside of the structure of any schemes. and he's a massive human being. I don't know if how close South Carolina's measurements are, but he's listed at 6'3", 242. So he's not tall, but he's thick. And for him and some of the athletic traits that he brings, that can really pose something that is challenging for defenses, especially if you have this guy that not only can be kind of a stone in there that's tough to knock over, but he's also got a cannon for an arm. For him, I thought that kind of opposite of some of the other guys, he checks the ball down too much. I want to see him push that ball downfield. I didn't see that as much. I know that he has pushed that downfield, but when that's happened, and I think it might kind of go together, he, especially in late game situations when they're down, he's definitely run into issues with turnovers. His decision making, his mechanics have dropped when he's also gotten into high pressure situations, whether or not he's actually down and kind of like under that mental pressure, or actually having 5-6 rushers come at him in the pockets under pressure. His decision making and mechanics have drastically dropped, and there's a pretty big difference between that. He's going to be one player that I look at, one of the stats, pressure to sack ratio. He's almost at 20%, which is pretty high, especially compared to some of the other players. Aside from that, just some inconsistent accuracy pieces, but he's definitely got the tools there. All three of these guys, in my opinion, bring a lot to like in terms of their arm talent and the kind of intangibles that they bring, whether it be high athleticism like Sellers and Klubnik, or just kind of that poise that Aller brings. I think that all three of these guys have the opportunity to really push for a top 10, maybe even top 5 selection, depending on how the draft rolls out. I think they're a fun group, and they can kind of really make or break whether or not we consider this to be a really good quarterback class. 2 for me comes in is Garrett Nussmeier. Garrett Nussmeier had a just amazing year last year, and you compare Miller Moss filling the shoes of Caleb Williams. Garrett Nussmeier filled the shoes of Jaden Daniels, and he did a really good job. He wasn't Jaden Daniels. That's not his game. But, man, is he able to kind of be the next player in that line of really, really good LSU quarterbacks. Another player with good arm talent, not Lenore Sellers, but he's going to be kind of in that tier with the other guys where this is NFL arm talent. This is a player that has the ability to push the ball, put the ball where he needs to put it. He, in my opinion, is probably one of the more accurate quarterbacks. I think he has an understanding of where to place the ball, especially given coverages, given where players are draped around his receivers. I really, really liked his ability to be very, very accurate with the ball. And I think he plays well in the pocket. Once again, he can move to evade pressure while keeping his eyes downfield. He's looking to throw the ball, and most of the time he can do that. He was, like all quarterbacks are going to be, affected by pressure, but compared to most others, he had under 10% pressure to sack ratio, and that, of all of the players I've talked about, aside from Miller Moss, is the lowest. So something where he's shown the ability to really be effective in the pocket. Flip side of that, not much of a scrambler, probably one of the worst mobile quarterbacks in this group. One of the bigger knocks I have against him is going to be just that. The others, he tends to fade away when making deep passes rather than standing tall. And he showed inconsistencies in some decision making. Both of those, I think he will continue to improve upon. He's not improving his athletic ability. Maybe he improves kind of an understanding of when to tuck the ball and run. But if you're telling me that I get a quarterback that has an understanding of how to maneuver within the pocket and is accurate, can push the ball to all three levels of the field, both inside and outside, I will gladly take that. So Nuss Bus is going to be a really really high quarterback. I'm sorry, not even quarterback, high player on my board as we start to progress through the summer scouting series. And then finally, as if it was going to be a surprise to anyone, Arch Manning comes in at number one for me. Everything that I wanted to see from him in the limited sample size, and that's kind of like the big asterisk I'll put around him, is I got the chance to watch him against Mississippi State when he got a start, and then I saw him come in and take snaps against Colorado State. That was in a blowout type situation. The Mississippi State game was really one of the few that he had the opportunity when Quinn Ewers was hurt to step in and be a true passing quarterback and command the offense. But all of these couple caveats built around it. Number one, he's coming in, whether it be the Georgia game or in a blowout situation, it's an offense that's molded around Quinn Ewers, and they are doing the things that help Quinn. Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers are two very different quarterbacks, in my opinion. And I think that that's going to be ultimately a benefit to Arch once the season rolls around this year. But also with that, looking at some of those situations like the Georgia game or other things, it's not something where it benefits him in those moments right there. It can kind of hurt him just because he's coming in an awkward situation and having to play when they're up big and just hand the ball off or make some check down throws, or play under duress like in the Georgia game in kind of a chaotic situation. For his strengths, his frame is exactly what you would want it to be. He comes in at 6'4", 225, built like your stereotypical quarterback, moves well in and out of the pocket. I think one thing that he offers pretty good, especially in comparison to his uncles, is the ability to move around. He's fairly mobile. He understands when to tuck the ball and run. He has the athletic ability to do that. His arm talent, him and Sellers, to me, like I said, Sellers before, but Arch would be up there. I don't know if he's above him, but we'll go with 1A, 1B. He just effortlessly puts the ball downfield. It looks like he doesn't need to really even try. The ball's on a rope when he wants it to be. He can flick it down 40 yards and just put it in the breadbasket. And it's a really pretty thing to be able to watch. The accuracy on that is also something that he's able to have. So something that was really fun to watch from him was that arm talent paired with, once again, his ability to move around well in space. With his ability to move, sometimes he actually did choose to scramble more often than to take a check down. Not that it's a bad thing, but I think that I'd like to see him keep his eyes downfield. Even a player like a Jackson Dart from this last year is athletic enough and a mobile enough quarterback where they move downfield very well, but they're still keeping their eyes up for a potential receiver that can get that 20, maybe even 15 yards, rather than scramble that more likely than not it's going to end up in 5 yards. Maybe it goes 10, maybe it goes 20, but I like to see him keep his eyes up a little bit more for that. And then he's at times almost too comfortable in the pocket. It makes me wonder if he has an understanding or a feeling, I should say, for pressure when he is playing full-time against not a Mississippi State. No strays intended there. But when he's playing against some top-tier SEC competition that have some legitimate pass rushers, is that comfort in the pocket going to start to result in sacks and fumbles, or in poor play as a drop in those mechanics because of that comfort level? So something that is on my radar, but it's hard to ding him that he extended the pocket as long as he needed to for the situation he was in. But something I definitely want to take a look at. So that's the list, 1 through 10. We go Arch, Nussbus, Sellers, Klubnik, Aller rounds out top 5, and then Childs, Levitt, Amalieva, Beck, and then Moss get to 6 through 10. So please feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. Please, 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 please like, subscribe to the channel. What Owen does with the weekly huddle is absolutely phenomenal. I've appreciated every opportunity I've gotten to be on here. I obviously enjoy talking draft with Owen when we do that over the fall and throughout the winter in draft season for the Draft Professor. If you want to see more of me and him, please feel free to check us out Wednesdays starting in November. We're going to be on together on the Draft Professor talking about defensive tackles and edge rushers. I am planning on being back to once again talk about all position groups. Running backs will be next. So keep a notification bell on the channel so you can see when that comes up. I know that there will be a couple other things that Owen's posting throughout the summer, which are going to be absolutely wonderful. Once again, Newt Westen. You can find me on Twitter at NFL Draft _Weston. Feel free to check me out also at zerotechdraft.com. And then once again, anything that you can do to help support Owen's channel with the Weekly Huddle would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, night, afternoon, early morning, whenever you're watching this. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your time following this. Have a good one.